ਅਫਗਾਨਿਸਤਾਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਖਰਾਬ ਹੋਏ ਹਾਲਾਤਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨ ਫੌਜ ਆਪਣੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਲਿਆਉਣ ਲਈ ਕਾਫੀ ਯਤਨ ਕਰ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਦੀਆਂ ਇਹ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ਾਂ ਹੁਣ ਸਵਾਲਾਂ ਦੇ ਘੇਰੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹਨ। ਸਾਬਕਾ ਜਨਰਲ ਰਿਕ ਹਿਲੀਅਰ ਨੇ ਟਿੱਪਣੀ ਕਰਦਿਆਂ ਆਖਿਆ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਯਤਨ ਕਾਫੀ ਹੌਲੀ ਤੇ ਅਸੰਗਠਿਤ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਕੀਤੇ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਨ, ਜੋ ਕਿ ਕਾਰਗਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਹਨ।
Well, Heaven, first of all, I'm delighted that they're on the ground. They've been there for a while, and I stress that I have not talked to any government officials or military officials, but I have lots of sources. They've been there for a while, but they've been locked up inside of the airport perimeter. They went out as of today, and yesterday we had Afghan Canadian interpreters within 100 meters of the airport, and they could not get in there, and our troops could not go outside. What they do is they go out and they start making contact with the people that we want to get out, identifying who is in Kabul, who's around the area, where they're located, and then start looking at routes to that airport and the way that they can get those people into Kabul International Airport onto one of our flights and out. And yeah, I know a flight came out today with 400 people on it. That's good. I'd like to see 10 flights come out with 400 people on each of them, because the folks that are left there, let's be really, really clear here. They're in huge danger for their lives, and people are going to die because of our bureaucratic approach to this up till now. I'm delighted to see the Special Forces troopers out there. Who dares wins is a very real slogan for those troops, and they can make things happen, and let's use them to the extent we possibly can. Evan, we've been slow as cold molasses on this one. Our bureaucratic approach to identifying the people, having them fill out paperwork, was absolutely clumsy. It was so complicated. I looked at some of the papers they were asked to fill out and some of the IDs that identifications that they were asked to provide. And I would have had great difficulty doing it here in this great peaceful country of ours, let alone in a war-torn country when you're on the run, where identification and papers are not easy to come by. But we made it extremely difficult, and now at the last moment we're racing to try and catch up and get people out. And I do hope that we are successful, and we can't depend completely on our special forces there. We've got to work with our allies, but the British and French have been outside of Kabul International Airport now for days, if not several weeks, and they've been hugely successful. We've got to work with our international allies. Can I say that the road to doing anything in Afghanistan runs through Islamabad? So if I had 3 priorities for Canada.
ਫੈਡਰਲ ਚੋਣਾਂ ਲਈ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਪਾਰਟੀਆਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਚੋਣ ਪ੍ਰਚਾਰ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਇਸ ਵਾਰ ਵੀ ਮੁੱਖ ਮੁਕਾਬਲਾ ਲਿਬਰਲ ਤੇ ਕੰਜ਼ਰਵੇਟਿਵ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਵਿਚਕਾਰ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਜੇਕਰ ਐਨਡੀਪੀ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰੀਏ ਤਾਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਪੱਲੜਾ ਵੀ ਭਾਰੀ ਰਹੇਗਾ। ਕੁੱਲ ਮਿਲਾ ਕੇ ਇਹ ਆਖਿਆ ਜਾ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਐਨਡੀਪੀ ਮੁੱਖ ਭੂਮਿਕਾ ਨਿਭਾ ਸਕਦੀ ਹੈ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਬਣਾਉਣ ਵਿੱਚ। ਇਸ ਸਭ ਵਿਚਾਲੇ ਸਿਆਸੀ ਮਾਹਿਰ ਦਾ ਕੀ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਹੈ, ਜਰਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਸੁਣੋ।
Entirely possible, and I remember when he was putting up the numbers a couple of weeks ago, Nick Nanos was saying, these are the numbers before the campaign. And he said, as the campaign rolls along, they're going to start getting closer. I don't think that even Nick Nanos thought that he would see polls with the Liberals and the Conservatives this close that fast. The NDP is basically holding, which is good news for them, because the squeeze play eventually will be the Liberals trying to talk to progressive voters saying, I know you're disappointed, we didn't get it done on climate change, we didn't get it done on First Nations, but if you don't vote for us, those horrible Conservatives are going to get in. Almost as if the only reason the Liberals exist is to block the Conservatives, but they don't have a lot on the table. It came out yesterday in a news story that they were asking their candidates to try to come up with big wow ideas because they didn't have much there, which goes right back to the problem we talked about at the beginning of the campaign when it was launched. Why are they having this campaign in the middle of a pandemic? What is the necessity for this campaign other than Mr. Trudeau and his party feeling that they're entitled to something more than the minority government that they were in? Mr. Trudeau was the Prime Minister of Canada until he dissolved Parliament. So it's a bit of a tricky situation for them right now. Now, I've never underestimated the Liberals. They're deeply experienced. They know what they're doing. But, it reminds me of this old expression, Andrea, that very often generals prepare to fight the last war. And as the Liberals flailed around and tried to stick to O'Toole some notion that he was somehow an anti-vaxxer, which turned out to be ridiculous, and tried to make him into Andrew Scheer on a woman's right to choose when he's been straight up with his party members, that he's pro-choice, it didn't work in either case. So they were preparing to fight Andrew Scheer, who's not their opponent. And it turns out that O'Toole's quite a resilient opponent. He speaks well in front of the cameras. He's really upped his French. I can tell you in Quebec, people were gobsmacked at how good this guy's French was a year after coming in, when he had, approximate knowledge of French. Now his French is really colloquial, it's friendly, and he's getting his ideas across. So I think he's come as a surprise to a lot of people. Whether that will last until election day is another thing.
ਇਸ ਸਮੇਂ ਲਿਬਰਲਾਂ ਤੇ ਕੰਜ਼ਰਵੇਟਿਵਾਂ ਦਰਮਿਆਨ ਕਾਂਟੇ ਦੀ ਟੱਕਰ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਜਿਸ ਸਮੇਂ ਚੋਣਾਂ ਹੁੰਦੀਆਂ ਹਨ ਤਾਂ ਲਿਬਰਲਾਂ ਨੂੰ 32.5% ਸਮਰਥਕਾਂ ਕੋਲੋਂ ਵੋਟਾਂ ਹਾਸਲ ਹੋਣਗੀਆਂ, ਜਦਕਿ ਕੰਜ਼ਰਵੇਟਿਵਾਂ ਨੂੰ 31.4% ਵੋਟਰਾਂ ਦਾ ਸਮਰਥਨ ਹਾਸਲ ਹੋਵੇਗਾ। ਟੂਲ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਲਗਾਤਾਰ ਲੁਭਾਵਣੇ ਵਾਅਦੇ ਕੀਤੇ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਨ।
This past year and a half have been difficult for all families. Across the country, Canadians have lost loved ones. Some have lost jobs. Some are losing hope. There's a cost of living crisis right now in Canada. The cost of everything is going up. Instead of focusing on this cost of living crisis, instead of focusing on the fires in British Columbia or the fourth wave Delta variant, Mr. Trudeau has called an election. And last week, he said he doesn't even think about monetary policy and inflation because he doesn't think it impacts families. Well, with gas going up, groceries going up, kids' back-to-school clothes going up, it does matter to families. Only a Prime Minister completely disconnected from the needs of families right now would say something like that. The Liberals, the NDP, and the Green Party don't understand that running massive deficits and driving away jobs leads to inflation, skyrocketing prices, less opportunity for Canadians to get back to work, and eventually put our social programs at risk. The timing of this election is reckless. If you agree with me and are frustrated with that, hit *3 and tell me why you think this fourth wave Trudeau election is reckless. I think the government should be focused on getting workers and small businesses back on their feet, and that's exactly what Canada's recovery plan is offering. We're going to put you first, Canadians first, instead of Mr. Trudeau time after time putting his own agenda, or in some cases his own image, ahead of the needs of Canadians at home and on the world stage. The Liberals do not have a plan. We're hearing right now that Mr. Trudeau is scouring the internet for ideas, for big ideas, for wow ideas, because after 6 years we have an unethical government with no plan for the future. The Team Trudeau is out of gas and has no plan. Canada's recovery plan is our plan to make sure that all sectors of the economy see a recovery.
ਬ੍ਰਿਟਿਸ਼ ਕੋਲੰਬੀਆ ਵਿੱਚ ਟੀਕਾਕਰਨ ਪ੍ਰਣਾਲੀ ਲਾਜ਼ਮੀ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਗਈ ਹੈ। ਪ੍ਰੀਮੀਅਰ ਜੋਹਨ ਹੌਰਗਨ ਨੇ ਐਲਾਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਕਿ 13 ਸਤੰਬਰ ਤੋਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਵਿੰਸ ਵਾਸੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਘੱਟੋ-ਘੱਟ ਇੱਕ ਖੁਰਾਕ ਲੈਣ ਦੀ ਜ਼ਰੂਰਤ ਹੋਵੇਗੀ। ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਇੰਡੋਰ ਅਤੇ ਆਊਟਡੋਰ ਸਮਾਗਮਾਂ ਦੌਰਾਨ ਜਾਣ ਲਈ ਵੀ ਟੀਕਾਕਰਨ ਪ੍ਰਣਾਲੀ ਕਰਵਾਉਣੀ ਲਾਜ਼ਮੀ ਹੋਵੇਗੀ। ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਵੈਕਸੀਨ ਪ੍ਰਕਿਰਿਆ ਲਈ ਪ੍ਰੂਫ ਵਿਖਾਉਣਾ ਵੀ ਲਾਜ਼ਮੀ ਹੋਵੇਗਾ।
And before we get into the substance of today's announcement, I just want to say again how grateful I and all British Columbians are to those who have been, for the past number of months, working so hard to protect people and property right across British Columbia through yet another absolutely horrific fire season here in BC. It's certainly challenging. This is the 4th year of this government, and this is the 3rd summer of record-breaking heat, record-breaking fires, and these are challenges that we are prepared for because of the hard work of people in every part of the province. So to the crews, to Emergency Management BC, to Indigenous leaders, to community leaders who've all been stepping up to do their part to engage in this challenging fire season, as well as all of the other issues that are on our plates, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. And in saying that, though, although we've had a bit of a reprieve because of the weather, we're a long way from out of the fire season. Currently, significant fires in all parts of British Columbia, here on the island, in the interior, getting certainly a reprieve in the north for now, but indications are that we have several weeks to go. So people, please be vigilant. Listen, be attentive if you're in a fire area to those around you, to emergency personnel who are there, of course, to make everybody safe. And now, of course, I want to turn to the objective of our conference today, and that's to talk about where we are in the COVID-19 pandemic. Minister Dix and Dr. Henry have already advised that it's quite unlikely, in fact, it is not likely, that we will be moving to step 4 of our restart plan come September. The Delta variant and an increase in cases, largely within the unvaccinated population, has led us to pause and reflect on what steps, what measures can we take through public health and through other initiatives to protect British Columbians, to protect business.
ਲਿਬਰਲ ਆਗੂ ਜਸਟਿਨ ਟਰੂਡੋ ਨੇ ਤਹਈਆ ਪ੍ਰਗਟਾਇਆ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਹੱਥ ਮੁੜ ਸੱਤਾ ਲੱਗਦੀ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਕਨਵਰਜ਼ਨ ਥੈਰੇਪੀ ਸੰਬੰਧੀ ਬਿੱਲ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੀ ਮੁੱਖ ਤਰਜੀਹ ਬਣਾਉਣਗੇ, ਪਰ ਉਹ ਇਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਦੱਸ ਪਾਏ ਕਿ ਨਵੀਂ ਪਾਰਲੀਮੈਂਟ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿੰਨੀ ਜਲਦੀ ਲਿਬਰਲ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਇਸ ਬਿੱਲ ਨੂੰ ਪੇਸ਼ ਕਰ ਸਕੇਗੀ। ਚੁਣੇ ਜਾਣ ਦੀ ਸੂਰਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੰਜ਼ਰਵੇਟਿਵਾਂ ਤੇ ਐਨਡੀਪੀ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰੈਕਟਿਸ ਉੱਤੇ ਪਾਬੰਦੀ ਲਾਉਣ ਦਾ ਵਾਅਦਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ।
I know we've got even more to do over the coming years, and I'm counting on all of you to send back Seamus, Joanne, Ken McDonald, and Anita Anand in Oakville back to Ottawa. We need a full Liberal team to continue the work that we've been doing over these past many months of ending this pandemic, but more importantly, of building a better future for everyone. And the way we're going to do that is by leaning in, standing strong, and staying true to our values. But it also takes more than just a team. It takes leadership and partnership. And that's why I'm so glad to also welcome our friend and extraordinary partner, not just for Newfoundland and Labrador, but for all of Canada, Premier Andrew Furey. So great to have you here, Andrew. You know, Andrew stepped up in a big way when we decided we were going to move forward on childcare. He said from the very beginning, Newfoundland and Labrador is going to be there. Incredibly ambitious. The rest of the country going to be bringing in $10 childcare in 5 years. What did you manage to manage? 3? Is that it? 2 years. I hear 2 years. $10 a day childcare in 2 years. That's the kind of leadership the Newfoundland and Labrador has always demonstrated. And quite frankly, what we're going to continue to work on together right across the country. So thank you for being here, Andrew. And like Seamus said, I would be remiss, we'd all be remiss, if I didn't point out and give a huge thank you to, he called her the Minister of Procurement. She's actually the Minister of Vaccines, Anita Anand. Thank you, Anita. But not just vaccines. She worked incredibly hard to get PPE into the country in those first difficult months. Then she turned around and procured massive numbers of rapid tests that the provinces are using across the country. But where she really stepped up and our team really stepped up was on getting vaccines into Canada. And yes, there are now more than enough vaccines in Canada for everyone who wants to get vaccinated.
रानी